All right, strap yourselves in because today we are going deep on libertarianism.
Oh, fun.
It's a philosophy all about individual freedom
Yes.
with minimal government intervention.
Absolutely.
We are going to unpack the core ideas,
Right.
trace its history, and try to figure out if a society built on these principles could actually work.
Yeah.
Our guide for this deep dive is Libertarianism: Principles, History, Types, and Practicality.
Great book.
So, imagine a world where you are free
Okay.
to make your own choices,
All right.
pursue your own path,
I like it.
but you are also fully responsible for the consequences.
That's libertarianism in a nutshell.
Pretty intriguing, huh?
It is. And that emphasis on personal responsibility is key.
Okay.
It's not just about doing whatever you want.
Right.
It's about taking ownership of the outcomes.
I see.
Libertarians believe that people,
Yeah.
when they're free to choose, will create a more prosperous and harmonious society.
Okay. I'm already a little skeptical. Won't this live and let live approach
Okay.
just lead to chaos? What about, like, someone deciding they don't want to pay taxes?
All right.
Would a libertarian society just let that slide?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Libertarians do believe in a minimal state, one that mainly exists to protect individual rights,
Okay.
enforce contracts, and provide national defense.
I see.
So they would advocate for lower taxes.
Okay.
But they still see a role for government
Right.
in ensuring basic order and security.
So less no government and more just enough government.
Exactly.
Where do you draw that line?
Well,
where does individual freedom end
yeah,
and the need for collective action begin?
that is the question.
Yeah.
It's one that libertarians have debated for centuries. Let's look at some key principles
Okay.
to see how they work in practice.
Sounds good.
Individual liberty is super important.
Right.
Things like freedom of speech, freedom of religion,
Yeah.
and the right to private property.
Right. Okay, so like basic rights.
Yes. The source material mentions a case where libertarians defended an artist
Okay.
who wanted to display a controversial painting. A lot of people found it offensive,
I see.
but they argued that even unpopular or distasteful expression should be protected.
That's interesting. So it's not just abstract ideas.
Nope.
These principles have real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
So even if something is offensive to most people, a libertarian would argue against government censorship.
Exactly.
Interesting.
They believe in more speech, not less.
Okay.
They would encourage debate, counter-arguments, even boycotts as ways to address the issue.
So no government intervention.
Right.
Got it. What about free markets?
Okay.
Some people might think businesses would exploit people without regulations.
Right.
But libertarians argue that a truly free market is self-regulating,
They do.
that competition and consumer choice can push businesses to act ethically
They believe so.
and sustainably.
Yes.
Okay.
They often point to history, where government intervention
Okay.
actually stifled innovation
Oh, wow.
and led to unintended consequences.
Interesting.
Friedrich Hayek,
Yeah.
in The Road to Serfdom, argues that even small restrictions on economic freedom
Okay.
can lead to tyranny.
Wow.
His work was really influential during the Cold War
I can see why.
because it contrasted with the Soviet economies.
Yeah. So it's not just economic efficiency.
Right.
It's about protecting individual liberty
Exactly.
from government overreach.
Yes.
This makes sense, especially in the context of 20th century totalitarian regimes.
Right.
It seems like libertarianism was a reaction to that,
It definitely
a
was.
reaction to those extremes.
Yes.
Interesting.
The 20th century saw a resurgence of libertarian thought, fueled by these concerns about government power
Okay.
and the erosion of individual rights.
I see.
Thinkers like Ayn Rand,
Yeah.
with her philosophy of objectivism,
Right.
championed radical individualism and laissez-faire capitalism.
Okay.
Her novel, Atlas Shrugged, depicts a dystopia where the government cripples the economy.
Wow.
It became a touchstone for libertarians.
So we're seeing how historical events and philosophical ideas shaped libertarianism. But it's not just a 20th century thing, right?
No, not all.
There were earlier thinkers too, right?
Of course.
Who laid the groundwork.
Yeah. It goes way back.
Yeah.
Libertarianism comes from classical liberalism from the 18th and 19th centuries.
Okay.
Thinkers like John Locke.
Yeah.
He emphasized individual rights and limited government.
Right.
And then there's Adam Smith,
The economist.
Yes, the father of modern economics, who was all about free markets.
Right.
They laid the foundation for a lot of libertarian principles.
It's fascinating how these ideas keep coming up.
It is.
Across different time periods.
They evolve and adapt.
They do.
But libertarianism also has critics.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
It can't be all sunshine and roses.
Not quite.
What are some of the main criticisms?
Well, a big one is wealth inequality.
Okay.
Critics worry that without government intervention,
Yeah.
the gap between the rich and the poor
Uh-huh.
will just keep growing.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine a free market
Right?
where everyone actually starts out equal,
Yeah.
especially with inherited wealth
Exactly.
and unequal opportunities.
It's a real concern.
Okay, so what else?
Critics also worry about market failures,
Like what?
monopolies,
Okay.
and externalities.
Wait, what are externalities again?
Oh, good point.
I feel like that word gets thrown around,
It does.
but not everyone knows what it means.
All right. An externality is basically a side effect
Okay.
of some economic activity
Uh-huh.
that affects other people
Right.
who aren't involved in the transaction.
A classic example is pollution from a factory.
Okay.
It harms the environment
Right.
and people's health,
Yeah.
but those people aren't buying the factory's products.
So it's a negative consequence that
Yeah.
affects people outside the transaction.
Exactly.
So critics say that a free market
Mhm.
might not fix these problems.
Right.
Because businesses are just focused on profit.
Yeah.
They don't care about these external costs.
Exactly.
Gee.
That's where government comes in.
Okay.
They argue that you need regulation
Mm-hmm.
or intervention to protect the environment,
Yeah.
ensure fair competition,
Right.
and prevent exploitation.
I get it. So we're seeing this tension
Sure.
between individual freedom
Yeah.
and collective action for the common good.
Right.
Finding that balance seems crucial.
It is, and there's a whole debate within libertarianism
Oh, really?
about the role of government.
Okay.
It ranges from minarchists
Mm-hmm.
who want a super small state
I see.
to anarcho-capitalists
Yeah.
who want no state at all.
Wow, that's quite a range. So even among libertarians,
Yeah.
there's disagreement about how much government is okay?
There is.
It seems like it comes down to how much faith you have in the market
It really does.
versus the need for government protection.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about technology.
Okay.
I'm curious how libertarian ideas
Mhm.
are playing out in the digital world.
Right.
The source material mentions the influence of libertarian thought in the tech industry,
That makes sense.
especially with things like cryptocurrency and blockchain.
It's a natural fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Technology empowers individuals.
Yes.
It breaks down hierarchies.
Mhm.
It fosters a more decentralized world.
Absolutely.
It's very libertarian.
It is.
I mean, think about it.
Okay.
You can publish a blog,
Yeah.
create an online community,
Mm-hmm.
launch a digital currency,
Right.
all without asking permission.
Exactly.
It's like the wild west of ideas.
It is.
Very frontier-like.
Yes.
And that fits with libertarian thinking. It does. The book even compares early pioneers to tech entrepreneurs today.
I like that comparison.
So Silicon Valley is the new frontier for libertarianism.
You could definitely say that.
Interesting.
And it's playing out in so many ways.
Like how?
Take online education.
Okay.
Platforms like Khan Academy and Coursera
Yeah.
are changing education.
Mm-hmm.
They're making knowledge accessible to everyone.
It's democratizing learning.
Exactly.
You don't need to go to a traditional college
Nope.
to gain knowledge anymore.
Not anymore.
You can learn from anywhere
It's amazing.
at your own pace,
Yes.
on your own terms.
It's very empowering.
It fits with the libertarian focus on individual learning.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's a good example.
Yeah.
But what about the downsides?
Of course, there are downsides.
What are the risks?
Well, the book mentions a few concerns,
Okay.
like online platforms becoming echo chambers.
Oh, right.
They can reinforce biases and polarize society.
That's a problem.
It is.
What else?
There's also the problem of harmful content,
Like what?
hate speech, or misinformation.
Right.
It's hard to regulate those things
It is.
in a decentralized online environment.
Yeah,
Traditional censorship doesn't really work.
I see. So finding that balance is a big challenge.
It is.
Freedom of expression
Yeah.
versus responsible content moderation.
Right. Something libertarians are trying to figure out.
Makes sense. But it's exciting to think about the potential The potential for technology to create a better world.
Absolutely.
A more decentralized world.
Yeah.
A more transparent world. A more empowering world.
That's a powerful idea.
There's a certain optimism there.
Definitely.
A belief in the power of the individual to innovate and solve problems.
Exactly.
Like a digital renaissance.
I like that.
Unleashed by technology.
It's happening right now.
It is.
All around us.
Amazing.
And while the future is uncertain, it's clear that libertarian ideas are shaping the digital age.
That's for sure.
They're not on the fringes anymore.
Yeah.
They're at the center of it all.
Wow.
It's a fascinating time to be alive.
It is.
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
I think the most compelling argument for libertarianism is the respect it gives to individual autonomy. Right. You get to make your own choices without anyone interfering.
Yeah, I get that.
It's about having control over your own life.
I can see the appeal, especially when it feels like we're just cogs in a machine sometimes.
Right.
Stuck with all these rules and regulations.
Exactly. But going back to your cake analogy.
Oh, yeah, the cake.
What's the mess?
The mess.
Yeah, the potential downside.
Okay, I think the biggest flaw, or at least the biggest challenge, is assuming that individual choices always lead to the best outcomes for everyone.
Interesting.
The source material talks about the tragedy of the commons.
Oh, right. The idea that people acting in their own self-interest can end up depleting shared resources, even when it's not good for them in the long run.
Like what?
Think overfishing.
Yeah.
Or polluting a river.
I see. So even if I'm a good libertarian and I care about the environment, my individual actions might not be enough.
They might not.
If everyone else is polluting, individual responsibility can't solve every problem.
That's the point.
Okay.
And that's where the critics come in.
Right.
They say you need some government regulation to protect the common good.
To protect everyone.
Yes. They argue that relying only on individual actions isn't enough for issues like climate change or public health.
So there needs to be some collective action.
That's the argument.
Okay, so we keep coming back to this tension.
Yeah.
Individual freedom versus collective action.
It's a central theme.
It seems like finding that balance is the biggest challenge for libertarianism.
It might be.
But let's go back to free markets.
Okay.
Libertarians say that competition and consumer choice can regulate the market. But isn't that a bit naive?
What do you mean?
We've seen companies prioritize profit over ethical behavior, right?
Well, it's a valid point.
Yeah.
And some libertarians even admit that the source material actually quotes Milton Friedman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He was a big supporter of free markets.
Yeah, I know his work.
He said businesses should operate within the rules of the game.
Meaning?
Meaning ethical and legal constraints.
Oh.
He said the main goal is profit.
Right.
But it should be done ethically.
Without deception or fraud.
Exactly.
So even Friedman saw the need for some limits.
He did.
But who sets those limits?
Right. That's the question.
Is it consumers?
Maybe.
Or the government?
It's a tough one.
It's the core of the debate, right?
It is. Libertarians would generally prefer less government. They believe the market can correct itself.
I see.
They might point to examples where too much regulation stifles things.
Yeah.
But critics say you need oversight.
Okay.
Otherwise, businesses will exploit people.
Exploit workers, consumers?
And the environment.
It seems like it all boils down to how much faith you have in the market.
It does.
Versus the need for government to step in and protect things.
It's a fundamental question.
Let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Are there any real-world examples?
Of what?
Of societies that have used libertarian principles.
Oh, well, no country is purely libertarian.
Right.
But some have adopted certain aspects.
Right.
Hong Kong, before the recent changes, was known for its free market economy.
Low taxes, minimal government.
Exactly.
They had a lot of economic growth.
They did.
Became a financial hub.
It's a good example.
And even the United States, despite the big government, still has some libertarian ideals. Emphasis on individual rights.
Yes.
Limited government compared to other countries.
Right. So it's more of a spectrum.
Yeah, a range of approaches.
Exactly.
But let's talk about this minimal state.
Okay.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, the focus is on protecting individual rights, enforcing contracts, and national defense.
So the basics.
Yeah. Things like courts, police.
Right, to protect from threats.
Exactly.
But what about things like education, healthcare, social welfare programs.
Right. Those are big ones.
Would those be private?
It depends. Yeah. Some libertarians think the free market can handle those.
Really?
They believe competition would lower costs.
Okay.
Improve quality. And people would have more choice.
I can see that side.
Yeah.
But what about people who can't afford those services?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is. Would they just be left behind?
That's a common criticism of libertarianism, that it could hurt the poor and vulnerable.
That's a serious concern.
It is.
Can a society be truly free if people can't afford basic needs?
It's a good question.
Like healthcare and education.
That's a key part of the debate.
Right.
Libertarians often say that a free market creates more wealth overall.
Okay.
So everyone would benefit.
So everyone would be lifted out of poverty.
That's the idea.
And what about social safety nets?
Well, they might point to private charity.
Okay.
Or voluntary organizations.
To help those in need.
Yes, as alternatives to government programs.
So it's like privatizing charity.
In a way.
But wouldn't that put too much burden on individuals to solve problems that affect everyone?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
The book talks about mutual aid societies.
Oh, interesting.
They were popular in the 19th century.
What did they do?
They provided things like health care and insurance to their members. But critics say those systems were limited.
Limited in what way?
They couldn't help everyone.
Ah, I see. So it's a complex issue.
It is.
No easy answers. Yeah. It comes down to how much do you trust the market versus the need for government
to ensure basic welfare
and opportunity for everyone.
Exactly.
Well, it's clear that libertarianism is more than just a theory.
It is.
It tackles real problems.
Absolutely.
Makes us think about the role of government, limits of freedom, what a just society looks like.
Those are big questions.
We've covered a lot.
We have.
But there's one more thing I want to explore.
Oh, what's that?
Technology.
Okay, yeah.
We talked about cryptocurrency and blockchain.
Right.
But I think there's a deeper connection.
Tell me more.
It's about how libertarian ideas fit in a world increasingly shaped by tech.
Interesting.
It's funny, isn't it? Libertarianism goes back to the 1700s.
Yeah.
But it seems so at home in the tech world.
Right, like it was made for the digital age.
It's like these old ideas are suddenly brand new again.
It's true.
And it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
The internet is all about decentralization, open access, empowering individuals.
It is. It's a space where the old rules don't really apply.
Exactly. You don't need permission to do things online.
Right.
You can publish, create, build without asking.
Like a true frontier.
It's that frontier spirit that aligns with libertarianism.
The book makes that connection too.
Yeah, comparing pioneers to tech entrepreneurs.
It's a good analogy.
So is Silicon Valley like the new Wild West for libertarians?
Maybe. It's certainly playing out in interesting ways.
Like how?
Well, think about online education.
Okay.
Platforms like Khan Academy, Coursera.
Yeah, I use those.
They're changing how we learn.
It's true.
They're making knowledge available to everyone.
It's like democratizing education.
Exactly.
You don't need a fancy college anymore.
Nope.
You can learn anything you want online.
On your own time.
At your own pace.
It's very libertarian, very empowering.
I agree. But there are downsides too.
Right, of course. Nothing's perfect.
What are the risks?
Well, the book talks about online platforms becoming echo chambers.
Right, where you only hear what you already agree with.
Exactly. It can reinforce biases and make society more divided.
That's a problem.
It is.
And what about harmful content online?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Like hate speech, misinformation.
It's hard to control that stuff in a decentralized environment.
You can't really censor things the same way.
It's a real challenge.
It seems like finding that balance is key.
It is. Freedom of expression versus responsible content.
It's tough.
It is, and it's something that libertarians are trying to figure out.
Makes sense. But even with the challenges, it's exciting.
Oh, yeah.
All this potential for technology to make things better.
Absolutely.
More decentralized, more transparent, more empowering.
That's the dream.
And there's that libertarian optimism.
It's there.
That belief that people can solve problems if they're just given the freedom.
And the tool.
It's like a digital renaissance.
It is. It's happening all around us.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive on libertarianism, I think it's safe to say it's worth thinking about.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't agree with everything.
Right.
It challenges us to question things.
It does.
Like the role of government, the limits of freedom, what a just society actually means.
Those are big questions.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Yes, tell us what you think.
Is libertarianism the future?
Or is it just a dream?
What resonated with you?
What challenged your assumptions?
What questions are you left with?
The goal here is to make you think critically.
To help you understand the world a little bit better.
To give you the tools to navigate it all.
So keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.
We'll see you then.